"Don't ever come back here," my parents said. I left that night. But years later, they knocked on my door. My name is Morgan Hayes, and I'm 27 years old. 6 years ago, I stood on the front porch of my parents' house in Columbus, Ohio, watching sleet hammer down around me, their final words cutting deeper than the February cold could ever reach. "Pack your things and get out. We're done with you." My mother's voice was ice, her face a mask I didn't recognize. My father just stood there, arms crossed, nodding his agreement like I was some business deal gone bad. I was 21, head over heels for a guy they couldn't stand, and that night, that brutal, freezing night, I walked away. My sneakers crunched through the icy slush, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might crack right through my ribs. They expected me to fail. They thought I'd come crawling back within a week, begging forgiveness, admitting they'd been right all along. But I didn't. That night changed everything. It shoved me into a storm, literal and emotional, where survival wasn't guaranteed. Their rejection was just the beginning. What came after? Lies that unraveled my world, heartbreak that nearly destroyed me, and a moment in that ice storm where I genuinely wondered if I'd make it to morning. But I kept going. 6 years later, they wished, God, how they wished, they could take back those words. Stick around to hear how I turned their cruelty into my fuel, how I built a life they never thought I could have, and how they eventually paid the price for throwing me away like yesterday's trash. If you've ever been cut off by family, if you've ever had to choose between their approval and your own happiness, drop a comment below. Share your story. You're not alone in this. Growing up in Columbus, I always felt like I was living in my brother's shadow. My parents, Linda and Robert Hayes, ran our upper-middle-class household like it was some kind of showroom for their achievements. Mom, with her perfectly highlighted hair and her voice that could slice through steel, wanted me to attend Ohio State, major in something respectable, and marry a man who'd look good in their Christmas card photos. A physician, an attorney, maybe an investment banker, someone with credentials she could brag about at her book club. Dad? He was quieter, but just as rigid. His silence was agreement, his disappointed headshakes louder than any lecture. Their dream was crystal clear, a daughter who'd make them look good at neighborhood barbecues, someone they could show off at their country club. But I wasn't that daughter. I was Morgan, the one who never quite measured up. My older brother, Kevin Hayes, was their pride and joy. At 28, he had an MBA from Northwestern, a corner office at a consulting firm downtown, and a fiancé who checked every single box on Mom's approved list. "Kevin's got his life together," Mom would say, her voice dripping with warmth, while I sat across the dinner table at 19, completely invisible. Kevin's accomplishments hung over me like a storm cloud. Every A- I brought home was met with, "Your brother graduated summa cum laude, Morgan. You need to push harder." I'd sit there, fork frozen halfway to my mouth, wishing I could just disappear into the carpet. Dad would jump in with, "You're not applying yourself," as if I wasn't busting my ass every single day. Their constant comparisons carved out a hollow space inside me, a voice that whispered I'd never be good enough, no matter what I did. High school became my escape route. I'd slip out to local hangouts, indie coffee shops, thrift stores, the record shop on High Street, anywhere I could breathe without their judgment suffocating me. That's where I met Connor Blake. He was 26, a tattoo artist with calloused hands covered in ink and this quiet confidence that drew me in like gravity. Connor worked at a shop called Iron and Ink on the north side, creating art on people's skin and talking about his dream of opening his own studio someday. He wasn't remotely close to the type of guy Mom and Dad pictured for me. No college degree, no corporate job, no Ralph Lauren wardrobe. But he made me feel alive. He made me feel seen. We'd sit in his beat-up Toyota Tacoma parked by the Scioto River, sharing stories about our lives, our dreams, our fears. With Connor, I wasn't competing with Kevin's shadow. I wasn't the disappointment daughter. I was just Morgan. And for the first time in my life, that felt like enough. When I told Mom about Connor, you'd have thought I announced I was dropping out to join the circus. A tattoo artist. Mom's voice could have shattered glass. We were standing in the kitchen, and she looked at me like I'd just tracked dog shit across her pristine white carpet. "Morgan, you're meant for better than that. Much better." Dad didn't say much, he never did, but his frown said everything. His disappointment radiated across the room like heat from an oven. They started dragging me to dinners with Kevin and his fiancée, Amanda, pointing out how stable their life was, how secure, how perfect. "This is what success looks like," Mom would say, gesturing at Kevin's tailored suit and Amanda's designer dress. I'd sit there, fork pushing food around my plate, while they painted a picture of the life I should want but didn't. I tried defending Connor. I explained he had ambition, plans, talent. But Mom cut me off mid-sentence. "He's beneath you," she snapped, her eyes cold as January. "You're throwing your future away." My face burned. My voice rose. We argued, right there in the dining room with Kevin and Amanda pretending to be invisible. But it was pointless. They'd already decided. Connor was a mistake, a detour from their perfect plan for my life. Kevin tried playing peacemaker, pulling me aside after one particularly brutal dinner. "They just want what's best for you, Morgan," he said, his tone careful, diplomatic. But he'd spent years earning their approval, building himself into their golden child. He wasn't about to risk that capital on me. I was on my own. Connor became my refuge. We'd meet up after my shifts at a downtown diner where I waitressed part-time, talking until 2 a.m. about a life free from their rules and expectations. I started staying out later, ignoring Mom's increasingly angry texts, avoiding Dad's disappointed silences. The more time I spent with Connor, the more I pulled away from that house on Parkview Drive. But the tension kept building like pressure in a sealed bottle. One night, I caught Mom and Dad whispering in the living room. I'd come downstairs for water and heard Mom's voice, low and sharp. "She's destroying her future, Robert. That boy is poison." Dad murmured something about discipline, his words too quiet to catch clearly. I stood frozen in the hallway, my heart pounding against my ribs. By 21, I was done trying to mold myself into their vision. I wanted a life that was mine, with Connor, away from their constant criticism. I didn't realize how soon that desire would detonate into a confrontation that would change everything. I started spending nights at Connor's apartment above the tattoo shop. It wasn't fancy, water-stained ceiling, furniture from Goodwill, a bathroom the size of a closet, but it felt like freedom. I'd pack a bag, tell Mom I was studying at the library, and disappear into Connor's world. Each time I left, I could feel her suspicion through the walls, her anger simmering just below the surface. Kevin knew something was up. "You're playing with dynamite, Morgan," he warned one afternoon in his car. He'd caught me sneaking back home at dawn, my hair still messy, my makeup smudged. I shrugged him off. He wouldn't stand up to Mom and Dad, so what did he know? I was done hiding. One weekend, I made my decision. I stuffed a duffel bag with clothes, my favorite books, my grandmother's bracelet, and told Connor I was moving in permanently. His face lit up like Christmas morning, and for a moment, one beautiful, naive moment, I believed we could build something real. But secrets don't stay buried in Columbus neighborhoods where everyone knows everyone. Mrs. Henderson from next door, one of Mom's bridge club friends, saw me carrying boxes into Connor's building. By dinner time that evening, the atmosphere in our house was thick enough to choke on. Mom stood at the kitchen island, her knuckles white as she gripped a wine glass. "You're living with that tattoo artist," she said, her voice sharp enough to draw blood. I froze, my water glass halfway to my lips. Dad sat at the table, his face granite, no longer the man who used to push me on the swings at Goodale Park. "Morgan, is this true?" he asked, his tone heavy with accusation. I nodded. There was no point lying anymore. The cat wasn't just out of the bag, it was doing backflips in the front yard. The argument that followed was nuclear. Mom's voice climbed higher with each sentence. "You're throwing your life away. His nothing, Morgan. Nothing." I fought back, my voice shaking but defiant. "His more than you think. You don't even know him." Dad slammed his fist on the table, making the silverware jump. "Enough," he barked. "You're embarrassing this family." I stared at him, hurt slicing through me like a blade. Embarrassing them? That's what this was about? Their reputation at the country club? Their status in the neighborhood? Not my happiness. Not my future. Just how I made them look. Kevin sat silently at the corner of the table, eyes fixed on his plate, offering absolutely nothing. I felt cornered, like a stranger in the home where I'd grown up. It was late, past midnight, when the fight reached its breaking point. Sleet had started falling, thick and relentless, coating the windows in ice. Mom pointed toward the door, her face twisted with rage. "If you choose him over this family, you're done here. Pack your things and get out. Don't ever come back." Her words hit like a physical blow. Dad stood behind her, jaw tight, arms crossed, saying nothing to stop her. I waited, God, I waited, for him to intervene, to tell her she was going too far. But he didn't. My chest ached, a mix of fury and betrayal churning inside me. Fine, I said, my voice barely steady. I don't need you. I don't need any of this. I grabbed my duffel bag, already packed from earlier, and stormed to my room for my winter coat. Kevin followed me, whispering urgently, Morgan, just apologize. They'll calm down. Just say you're sorry. I shook my head, tears burning my eyes but refusing to fall. They don't want me, Kevin. They want someone I'm not. They want another you. He reached for my arm, but I pulled away. I couldn't stay. Not after those words. Not after everything. I walked out the front door into the freezing night. The sleet hit me like tiny needles, soaking through my jacket immediately. I stood on the porch for a moment, staring back at the house with its warm lights glowing through the windows, mocking my exile. The loneliness crashed over me, heavier than the storm. I turned and started walking toward Connor's apartment, not knowing what came next. Living with Connor, I thought I'd found my happy ending. His apartment became my sanctuary. We'd cook cheap meals, ramen with whatever vegetables we could afford, grilled cheese that always burned on one side, and laugh about our future. Connor would talk about his studio plans while I sketched logo ideas on napkins. For 3 months, I believed we were building something real. I picked up extra shifts at the diner, saving every dollar. Connor worked long hours at Iron and Ink, often staying late for walking clients. It's for our future, he'd say, kissing my forehead before heading out. I trusted him completely. Kevin texted once, asking if I was okay. I'm fine, I replied, keeping it short. I didn't need his guilt or Mom's lectures filtered through him. Then the cracks appeared. Connor started coming home later, his phone always face down on the counter. I brushed it off at first. He was building his reputation, networking, hustling. But then I got a message on Instagram from an anonymous account. Your boyfriend isn't who you think he is. Ask him about Madison. My stomach dropped. Madison? Who the hell was Madison? I stared at my phone, my hands shaking. I started noticing things I'd ignored before. Connor taking calls in the hallway, his voice too low to hear. A receipt for North Star Cafe, a place we never went, dated for a night he claimed he was working late. Perfume on his jacket that wasn't mine. One night, he came home past midnight, his hair messy, smelling like someone else's body spray. I was waiting in the kitchen, arms crossed. Who were you with tonight? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. His eyes flickered with surprise, then he laughed it off. Just some guys from the shop, babe. Why? I pressed harder, mentioning the message, the receipt, the late nights. His face hardened. You're being paranoid, Morgan. I'm not doing anything wrong. But his defensiveness was its own confession. Something inside me snapped, quiet but final. I'm done, I said. I gave up everything for you. My family. My home. Everything. He reached for me, stammering excuses, but I stepped back. I grabbed that same duffel bag I'd carried out of my parents' house and walked out. I was alone again. Completely, devastatingly alone. 6 years later, I stood in my own townhouse in the short north, looking out at the Columbus skyline. I wasn't that broken girl anymore, the one who'd left Connor's apartment with nowhere to go, who'd shivered in a bus station wondering if she'd survive the night. After leaving Connor, I crashed with my best friend, Brittany Walsh, who worked as a dental hygienist. She gave me her couch, some cash, and most importantly, her belief that I could make it. You're stronger than you know, she'd say, handing me coffee before my early shifts. I worked 2 jobs, the diner and weekend retail, while taking night classes in accounting at Columbus State. It was brutal. I'd fall into bed at 2 a.m. and wake up at 6 a.m. to do it all again. But slowly, I built something. I graduated, landed a job at a mid-size accounting firm, then moved to a bigger one. I worked my ass off, proving myself with every audit, every report, every client meeting. Now, I'm a senior accountant at Worthington Financial Group. I share that townhouse with Derek Martinez, a middle school science teacher I met at a friend's barbecue. Derek's kind, steady, and his laugh makes me feel safe in ways I never knew I needed. My parents tried reaching out about 3 years ago. Kevin called first, his voice cautious. Mom and Dad want to see you. They're sorry, Morgan. Sorry. After 6 years. After telling me never to come back. I kept it brief. They made their choice, Kevin. I've made mine. When Mom sent a letter through Kevin, I didn't open it. I didn't need their guilt or their regret. They'd lost their daughter the night they threw me into that sleet storm, and no apology could change that. Connor? I heard through Brittany that his studio dream collapsed. Bad business decisions, loans he couldn't repay. Last she heard, he was working at a car wash, living in a studio apartment across town. That night in the ice storm broke me. But it also freed me. I learned I didn't need their approval or Connor's lies. I needed myself, my strength, my resilience, my refusal to quit. And that was enough. That was everything.